Right now, in just 5 days, voters in 5 states head to the polls. The presidential candidates and their surrogates are fanning out across the next primary states. The 3 Republicans have stops in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. On the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders and Bill Clinton have stops in Pennsylvania, while Hillary Clinton is in Connecticut. For the Democrats, 384 delegates are up for grabs in Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. For the Republicans, 172 delegates are at stake. Senator Ted Cruz concedes he won't get the 1,237 delegates needed to win the nomination, but he says Donald Trump won't get them either. And at a rally earlier this morning, Senator Cruz told supporters Trump can't beat Hillary Clinton in a general election.
As we stand here today, there are 2 and only 2 candidates who have any plausible path to winning the Republican nomination: me and Donald Trump. And what we're seeing in Maryland and across the country is 65 to 70% of Republicans understand that Donald Trump is not the best candidate to go head-to-head with Hillary Clinton.
Senator Sanders is brushing off calls to soften his attacks against Hillary Clinton. He's vowing to stay in the race for the Democratic nomination, even if Hillary Clinton builds an insurmountable lead. Our national correspondent, Suzanne Malveaux, is joining us now from Hartford, Connecticut, where Secretary Clinton just wrapped up a campaign event. Suzanne, Clinton's event focused in on gun violence. I know you're there. Tell us about it.
Wolf, I'm going to speak in hushed tones because this is an event that is ongoing as we speak. We're hearing from Hillary Clinton now, and what she's doing is she is addressing some of the questions from the audience. These are people who feel this very passionately and very deeply. Sandy Hook massacre at that elementary school happened 3.5 years ago, but for the people here in this audience, and particularly for people on that stage with her, it is just like it was yesterday. These people are talking about their family, their relatives, and the friends who have been victims of gun violence. One person in particular, this is the daughter of the principal who was killed at Sandy Hook Elementary, who's become a very strong advocate of Hillary Clinton, feeling like that she is the only person who really is fighting for gun control. There was just an ad that was released yesterday that she says that this is the only candidate who is strong enough, and that Hillary Clinton reminds her very much of the mother she lost. I want you to hear something that she said just moments ago.
At the top of your list. The reality is my mom was murdered, and she is not coming back no matter how hard I fight and how much I put into, activating, local networks and how much I organize. There's nothing I can do to bring her back. What I can do is stand up and use my voice and use my story to motivate other people to get up and use their voice and share their stories and come together around this issue.
Now, Wolf, the Clinton campaign feels that this is an issue that resonates in Connecticut as it did in New York because of some of the differences they believe between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, namely legislation that would allow some of the families of these victims of gun violence to sue gun manufacturers. Bernie Sanders has said previously that he believes that he has a good gun record, a D- by the NRA, that he does believe in supporting that ban against assault weapons, and that this is something that he thinks is really kind of a false contrast, a false narrative. He is in Pennsylvania today, 3 stops where he is going to be addressing that as well, Wolf.
Suzanne Malveaux reporting from Hartford, Connecticut. The primary there coming up on Tuesday. Thank you. Let's get some insight into Bernie Sanders' campaign strategy from someone who probably knows him better than anyone, namely his wife, Jane Sanders. Jane Sanders is joining us now from Burlington, Vermont. Jane, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Wolf.
Well, let me get your immediate reaction to what we just heard from Suzanne Malveaux. This is a gun control event in Connecticut, home of Newtown, as you know, that Hillary Clinton is doing, trying to promote her record. Clearly, her campaign believes that Senator Sanders is vulnerable in Connecticut and elsewhere, given his record on gun control. I'll give you a chance to respond to that.
I guess I hate to see the tragedy, the families that have had such tragedy being having it be very political. I mean, I think that Secretary Clinton has focused in on this one bill, but as you know, Bernie, as Suzanne said, he has a D- voting record. He has voted against the assault weapons ban since 1988. He's been opposed to it. And unfortunately, in 2013, it was defeated in the Senate. We need to ban the assault weapons, which include the Bushmaster AR-15, that was used in this terrible, terrible massacre. I think that I just don't like to see it be politicized. I think that Secretary Clinton's gun record is a lot more spotty than Bernie's. Bernie's been consistently supportive of instant background checks, opposed to assault weapons, the sale and manufacture of assault weapons, for closing the gun show loophole, for ending the straw man problem. And I think that's been since 1988. When Secretary Clinton ran for the Senate in New York, she was very pro-gun control. When she ran for the presidency against Barack Obama, she was very anti-gun control in 2008. And now that she's running against Bernie, she's back to, again, for gun control. I think the problem is that we all agree that this is a real issue and that we need to have common sense gun control legislation. The remedies are maybe where we disagree. I think that we need to ban the sale and manufacture of assault weapons, and that's what Bernie has voted for time and again. We need to get the Senate and the House to do that.
Let's move on and talk about what's going to happen potentially on Tuesday. A new poll just released today shows Secretary Clinton with a 25-point lead over Senator Sanders in Maryland. You can see 57-32. This is the Monmouth University poll, 57-32. How concerned are you, given what happened in New York? Potentially, there could be a repetition in Maryland, Pennsylvania, maybe Connecticut, elsewhere.
Well, I hope there isn't a repetition in a number of ways. First, of course, we'd like to win in 5 of the states or 3 of the states, but we also don't want to see a repetition of the real voting irregularities that occurred in New York. I know the mayor has spoken out about it. The attorney general is looking into it. We're really concerned that had happened, and the closed primary system. I mean, we're doing everything we can to bring people into the Democratic Party. And what's happening at the primaries is the door is being shut on them. So people are excited about Bernie. They're ready to vote, and they say they're being told in a number of states that they can't. We hope that nationwide we can change this in the long run, that there can be same-day registration and open primaries, so that as new people become interested in politics, they can participate, and as people who were really turned off by politics and have stayed out of the system and they're coming back in, that they're allowed to participate. I think he looks very good in Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and we're looking at Connecticut. So I think, as you've seen, Wolf, the polls leading up to the race have always been a lot wider in terms of a difference between Secretary Clinton and Bernie. And in a number of the cases, he has really overtaken them, the Michigan Miracle, as they called it. Yep. There have been a number of, he's always gotten closer and closer and closer.
That didn't, from your perspective, happen in New York. But let's talk about something that the Clinton campaign is now suggesting. Senator Sanders' attacks on Secretary Clinton, in the words of the communications advisor, they're destructive, not productive for the Democratic Party. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think all you have to do is look at the exit polls in New York, and the question was put to them as to how has this contested election played in the Democratic Party? Has it energized it, or has it polarized it, or had a problem? Energized, 60% say it energized. I don't think first, and that's just in the tail end. But let me take issue with what you're saying, Wolf. Bernie has not run a negative campaign. He has run a very positive, issue-oriented campaign. He talks about contrasts, the fact that Secretary Clinton supports fracking and Bernie does not. I won't go into all the things that are the issues that divide them, but that's what he's focused on.
But he has
Unfortunately,
suggested,
the Clinton campaign,
excuse me for interrupting, he has suggested she doesn't necessarily have the judgment to be president of the United States, given her record on several issues, including her vote for the Iraq War.
Well, that's in response to the really demeaning things that Secretary Clinton and her campaign consistently are saying about him, that he's not qualified, he hasn't studied up on the issues, all these different things that they've been saying, and they're continuing to say. Last night she says, or the night before, well, we need to bring the party together. But the comments from her surrogates about Bernie have been anything but positive. So it's hard. It's hard for our supporters. We hear it all the time. Okay, well, we agree with you. We want an issue-oriented campaign. Why are they attacking him in terms of his credibility, in terms of his qualifications, over and over and over again? And then, Wolf, politics 101, they do that, and then they say the other candidate is doing it. I think if you look at it, you'll see we've been extremely positive.
All right, let's talk about
the
path to the Democratic nomination that your campaign manager, other strategists say that Bernie Sanders still has. Mathematically, the assumption is, the working assumption, he can't get enough pledged delegates to get the nomination. The only way he could get the nomination is if he convinced a lot of those so-called super delegates, they're about 15% of all the delegates, more than 700 super delegates in total, to come around, to leave Hillary Clinton and join him. Is the working assumption, the path for the nomination, the only path you have is if he convinces super delegates to join and support him?
I think that, time will tell. We have 5 states up, 384 delegates this Tuesday. We've got Oregon and California. Before New York, he had won 8 out of 9 contests, and some of them by 82%, by 74%. So if we see those kinds of margins in places like Oregon and California, then we'll be doing quite well. The important thing is that we recognize it's not just math. Anything can happen in politics. It's also what are we talking about? What are the issues that are important? We need to give every single person the opportunity to vote for Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. And we need to continue the discussion on the issues, because there are very, very real differences between the two candidates. We need to go into that convention with a clarity of Senator Sanders stands here, Secretary Clinton stands there on these issues, and then let people decide. The other thing, Wolf, is that for the last 2 months, it's been consistent. Bernie is a better candidate against the Republicans, all of them. Secretary Clinton loses to Kasich, barely beats Cruz, and beats Trump by 8 points less than Bernie does, and Bernie wins all 3 by handy margins.
Jane Sanders is the wife of Senator Bernie Sanders. Jane, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Wolf. Good to be here.
Thank you. We're also following another story. There's breaking news of a death investigation at the singer Prince's recording studio in Minnesota. We're going to bring you the latest right after this.